Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to Jorge Romero Monroy, who's the CEO of Reyna Silver. They're one of the better silver projects we've spoken to recently. They're an explorer developer with assets in Mexico. And if you want to hear our thoughts, opinions of that conversation about the company and the projects themselves, you can get that at cruxinvestor.com/club, where you can also find detailed company reports, commentary from market experts from around the world on a variety of commodities. There's training videos. There's also summaries of other interviews that we've done. And of course, there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. If you go there now and sign up for the waitlist, you can get early access to the club. And of course, we'd love your thoughts and feedback as well. So do remember to give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we talked about, take a look in the description below.
Jorge, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I haven't seen you since crikey, London, maybe a couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago when you could actually travel and go to places.
I remember it. I remember it well. I remember it fondly. So how are you? Where in the world are you?
I'm actually at the moment in Hong Kong. I've been here for about 6 months since the COVID crisis began. I typically spend half of the year in Canada and Mexico. So I missed it for the first time in, 10 years. I missed summer there. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, a lot of late nights, a lot of calls, but it has had some benefits as well, just in terms of not having as much travel as one is used to. So it's been an interesting 6 months. And as we were talking before we started, the precious metals, having a healthy run has also helped. With the inconveniences of not being able to travel.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think precious metal CEOs all seem to be smiling these days. But you're here to tell us today about Reyna Silver, which you kind of kicked off in the start of the year. So why don't you kick off, give us a 1 minute overview. Yeah, I'll pick it up from there.
So Reyna Silver is a company that I started in 2017. And really what I was looking for was high grade silver that has district scale potential. And we did a deal with Mag Silver where they gave us 2 of their original assets from their IPO, which they hadn't had the bandwidth to move forward. And we put them into a private company, and we just went public in June this year. And our philosophy is high grade silver with the potential for district scale, exploring with probably one of the most successful exploration teams in Mexico over the past couple of decades, and with a very strong focus on exploration.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the summary. Can we just deal with some of the outliers there? Because obviously there's a strong relationship with Mag Silver. You got the kind of first 2 assets off of them, and you stayed private for a while. You've also got Peter McGaw as a technical advisor here, and also there, because of the assets, I suspect, have been a big shareholder of yours too. So can you just explain that relationship for us?
Absolutely. So Mag Silver, I've had a relationship with them for a number of years, especially because we're based in Asia. They've had these projects actually from a long time since they went public. However, their main project, Juanicipio, has consumed all their focus, all their capital, and they wanted to initially. They were looking potentially for a JV partner for these assets, and so I had with some of my connections here in Asia, I had a group that was very interested in what is now our flagship asset called Gigi. So I took them to Mexico, must have been 2017 or maybe 16. And as you know, Asians take a long time to make decisions, but they were really interested in the asset. So I spoke to the CEO of Mag Silver and said, look, what do you think if I personally, put the assets into a private company? I'll fund the company myself until at the time, you have to remember, silver was not very attractive. Really, nobody wanted to hear about silver. It was something that I actually thought was quite interesting because, as bad as it ever got with gold, there's always been somebody who wanted to invest in gold. There was maybe a few months here and there where gold was below production cost, But when it comes to silver, we're really coming out of a decade where, for the majority of those years, silver has been at a loss. So with that, MAG Silver at the time was very focused on getting their project financed and into feasibility. And then, they're now maybe a few months away from going into production. But at the time, they were really trying to conserve their cash position. So I spoke to Peter McGaw, who's one of the founders of MAG Silver, and I sensed his incredible enthusiasm for these projects that he had generated and he had taken to MAG Silver when he became public. And really, these projects had never had an opportunity to be explored in a systematic and dedicated way. So the agreement with MAG was we put the two assets into a private company, and then MAG had a free carry up until we went public. So we were private for the better part of maybe, I think, almost 2 years. And during that time, I personally funded the company, doing very little exploration, more than anything, just the elementary stuff to understand the assets a little bit better. It was really all with my own money, so I had limited resources to get this off the ground. And then last summer of 2019, I saw an opportunity where the markets were a little more receptive on silver. And then we raised this very small seed round that really allow us to finance the company into going public, which, nothing prepares you to how difficult and tedious and expensive it is to take a company public. But we were very lucky to close our financing just before COVID became a sort of, that crash that happened in March. And then we went public in June at a time where silver was really on the rise. We went public when silver was maybe $15. And we were able to raise $6.5 million on our RTO round, which was more than we had expected we were going to be able to raise. And we were quite happy with that cash position. Then what happened was our share price went up quite a bit. And there was an opportunity of acquiring a property that was actually very important for our flagship asset, because the geophysics showed a very strong anomaly that led from our property to the neighbor. So we took an option on that property, which, it was something that MAG Silver had been chasing for many years. And part of the reason why they had not spent a lot of money exploring this asset, they really wanted to have the land package complete, because the last thing you want is you make a discovery and then, half of the deposit is in land that you don't own. So that was actually a big achievement for us. On the back of that acquisition, we went to raise $4 million. Again, like something that was very surprising for me is the demand was tremendous. We went for $4 million. We got offered, probably close to 12 to 15. Discussing with the board, we decided to take 7. And then we left a lot of money on the table, which I think in turn started going into the market. And that's why you have seen our stock have such a strong trading volume over the time since we went public.
Okay, so before you tell me the story, the whole story in one breath, I just want to dig down and be able to kind of compartmentalize stuff for people at home, so understand who all the players are on the moving parts, if you don't mind. Let's stick with MAG Silver here. So you've got Peter McGaw there as a technical advisor, because he made those discoveries for MAG Silver. And MAG Silver, as everyone understands, $1 billion plus company working with Fresnillo. Great story. Everyone likes it. So by association, it's good news for you, but I want to understand the relationship. So what is Peter actually doing for you on a day-to-day basis?
So Peter is a technical advisor, and his commitment to Reyna Silver is about 15% of his time. What it looks like, I think it's the commitment in terms of days is 5 days a month. And what it looks like in practical terms is he spends about an hour or two a day on Reyna Silver. And we have a team that's full-time. That's a team that actually has done their whole career with Peter and with MAG Silver. So two geologists, Rene Ramirez, who's an exploration manager, and Manuel Gomez, who's another exploration manager. Both of them have been with Peter actually since the late 80s. And, they're on their own right experts in the kind of deposits that we have. Specifically on these deposits, they've been involved in every drill campaign that MAG Silver ever did. But they've also been involved with everything that Max Silver has done exploration wise. And so those two gentlemen are full time with us.
Right. So they're working with Peter on on a week by week basis, the five days a month sort of stuff. Okay. Exactly. And again, just let's finish off on Mag Silver. So Mag Silver have been a significant shareholder. They've been selling down recently. Is that in agreement with you? I mean, what was the point of that?
Yeah. So Mag Silver, obviously they're very supportive of the company. And these are two assets that the reason they were willing to do a deal with us that was purely based on shares was the fact that they wanted to have exposure to our upside. And, they obviously like the assets a lot. They didn't want to just sell them for cash. And, they did the deal that we have with them. Actually, the majority of their shares are locked up for, I think it's a year and a half. However, there was something like 20% that was free trading. And so they did call me and explain to me that they wanted to sell some of that position down. However, what they explained to me was, Mag Silver is going to go through a big transformation next year when they become a massive cash cow. In the meantime, they want to be conservative with their cash position. So I think they'll start production sometime early to middle of next year. And between now and then, I think what the CEO of Mag Silver explained to me was that they wanted to be conservative with their cash. However, he assured me they're supportive of Reyna Silver. They intend to keep the position they have. And, again, they've, in all fairness, been extremely supportive in every way, from getting the company off the ground to giving us a tremendous, support in allowing Peter to be part of and the team of geologists in Mexico to be part of what we're doing.
Okay.
So the relationship, I would say, when we originally did the deal, it was such a different market and their frame of mind was very different. And then I think now it is a company that's changing very quickly, and once the cash flow starts coming into the company, I think they'll take a broader look at how they approach exploration and what they can do with us. Now, our market cap also has gone up tremendously, a lot more than we had, frankly speaking, expected in such a short period of time. So I think that, naturally, if they see an opportunity to recover some of the investment, they invested about 15 million Canadian dollars into the two properties that we have. So in order for us to have been the beneficiaries of these work, that's how much they spent.
Jorge, we are going to come on and talk about it. I think you've done some great things, but I want to deal with this because seems to be a significant proportion of the conversation going on out in the marketplace. The way that perhaps could have been better explained to the market. I know it's no one's business, but Mag Silver and Mag Silver's shareholders, what they do. They don't owe you an explanation, I guess. But I do buy their explanation, whether it's true or whether it's not. It sounds reasonable, right? But for you guys, I think it perhaps caused you a problem. Perhaps there's a bit of a knock on in the share price. But the way you've explained it there would have been good for your shareholders to try and understand or be explained to. So that's why I asked, because there's a lot of people asking us. Right.
And I get that question all the time, and I've been trying to be as open as I can. We've had a lot of webinars and participating in the conference, and that's pretty much been the first question that comes up.
Absolutely. And the question is, does Mag Silver know something that we don't, that you don't? And the answer you're saying is no.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is no, unless they haven't told me either. But to be honest, they're very serious people. They're, I think Mag Silver.
They're good people.
Also, and also keep in mind, Peter is putting his reputation on the line here. I think that's also very important to know. He is very, very involved with the company, obviously time-wise, but I think these projects mean a lot to him. Just to give you a sense, he put them together. Probably is the work of, in the terms of our flagship asset Gigi, probably the work of 10, 15 years before it went into Mag Silver. Later on I'll explain to you a little bit more of the work that he did. But I think these are very worthy targets. I mean, at the end of the day, also you have to remember that Mag Silver is becoming a much bigger company than it was when we did the deal with them. I mean, everybody who's following the company, they're going to go into production in what is by far the highest grade silver project in the world. They're going to go into a very different league of company. The projects that we have are, in all fairness, a lot earlier stage. They'll be in a position where they'll be, one of the top silver, precious metals producers in the world. So I think that we have to keep that in mind as well.
No, it's understood. I just wanted to get it out there. Wanted to have you a chance to explain it to this audience. We had lots of questions sent in.
Yeah, and what I'll say to your audience is that Mag Silver was very courteous, and they gave me plenty of notice. They consulted with me and said, look, the board has taken this decision. And I also, I was very appreciative of that. And they assured me they're, still committed to the company and, intending to maintain their current position, which is they're still a largest shareholder. They own about 12.5% of the company.
Okay, we've dealt with that point. Let's get on to the company which you've set up and structured. Okay, so there's a lot to like. Cash position at the moment, you've got about what, 10, 11 million bucks?
Closing of end of September, we have 11.7 million.
Right, and you got some warrants coming through as well.
Correct. Yeah, warrants. I mean, surprisingly, not so much has come in, but it's almost roughly equivalent to the money that we spent since we went public. I think something like $900,000 came in. However, total value of the warrants, if they were to come in, is roughly another $12-13 million. So it's significant. And but I've been very pleasantly surprised at the fact that people are holding to both their shares and their warrants. I think people really. One of the things I'll tell you is we did make a very big effort to look for investors that really believed in the project. We stayed a little bit away from too many Canadian investors and retail investors. So a lot of our investors are institutional investors, funds in Europe, Australia, North America that are really dedicated into funding discoveries and looking for projects that have the potential for world-class discoveries. And then a lot of high net worth individuals in this part of the world and in the US who have been incredibly supportive so far. So I think that is another reason why our shares has been, performance has been strong. Yeah. We don't have a huge component of retail that's just looking to speculate and make a quick return.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking down at some of the people associated with your company. There's a lot of finance guys there, and I look at the structure. It's a fairly tight corporate structure.
Yeah.
The G&A is not that significant, quite frankly. So
right.
you're looking after what the market message is.
That's correct. And to be honest, I'm personally the largest shareholder of the company, and I'm really thinking about the company as a business and what's going to be have the biggest alignment with shareholders. For me, this company represents something quite significant in terms of my net worth. I think it's now, like 80% of my net worth. And I'm, really have the full intention of making this work, not just for myself, but for all the shareholders. So we did try to structure our G&A in the conservative side of things, sort of looking at how other Canadian companies do it, that a lot of it becomes a bit excessive. And having been an investor in companies for the better part of a decade, and having suffered that, we wanted to. To be honest, it was part of the impetus of creating this company was, looking at the assets and putting together the management team and recognizing that, we were able to bring the capital to support these really amazing teams that have, if you look at Peter McGaw and his team in Mexico, the track record of discovery is just amazing.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to point that out because it's one of the first things that we look at. Let's talk about what you've got. You've got 6 assets in there, including the recent Nevada acquisition. Yes. So can you just kind of run us through those and what it is that you're trying to build? Because I'm trying to understand the company that I'd be buying into here.
Absolutely. So there is actually 7 assets in the company, but
Okay.
Only 4 of them are significant. The first 2 we generated them, when the company was still private, and it was they're actually very good projects, but very early stage. The criteria is the same: is high grade silver, district scale potential. If you look at the land packages, one of them is like 27,000 hectares, and we wanted to have that as part of a pipeline, but they're not core to the company. So the moment we're looking for ways to JV or spin out those early stage assets. And then one of them is a gold project in Quebec that we inherited as part of the shell. Our 2 main projects are the 2 projects that came from MAG Silver, and that's Guigui and Batopilas. They're both incredible projects in the sense that, they're in the context of a district that has historic production and current production. In the context of, historic production, very, very high grade, very high tonnage over, the better part of 400 years, starting from the Spaniards and then the Americans. And so that quality was important to us. And then MAG Silver spent about 7 million Canadian dollars in each of our projects. And the work that they did over the time they had the projects was, really looking at the projects from a big picture, trying to narrow down a particular target area. So we inherited a tremendous amount of data, a tremendous amount of work. So those 2 projects are our main focus, Guigui and Batopilas. And then we have 2 projects that we acquired just in the past couple of weeks. And we acquired both of those on an option basis, recognizing our cash position, the warrants that potentially could come in, and the fact that silver could keep rising, and we could be in an environment where we will be able to add more to our portfolio. And those 2 projects are very strong on their own right. They follow the same criteria. They play to Peter McGaw's strength, which is CRDs. This is a CRD project in Nevada that's geologically very, very similar to our flagship project. And then another project in Mexico that's very close to our flagship project. That's an epithermal project. It's also a former producer with high grade. And it fits really well into our philosophy for the company, into the strengths of our technical team. But in both cases, we did it on a very reasonable deal that's mostly on options, most of the money going on the ground. And what I feel is, what drives our peer group of stocks is the possibility of high-grade discoveries, high-grade drill intersects that in turn can demonstrate the potential for a silver deposit that's high-grade and that has size. So, actually all 6 of our projects fit that bill. And I'm actually very pleased with the work that our team did in putting all of this together, the financing, the team, the assets, and just, we're fully financed to actually drill all of them. Our main focus is going to be Guigui, which is our flagship. And, I'll let Till give you more details about it. But in terms of the concept of the company, the way we have put it together is with intention of giving shareholders the maximum optionality to a rising silver price, and also to take advantage of the technical expertise that we have that's really, very unique in terms of we've created an asset base that's really suitable to the track record of the technical team that we have.
Okay, so let's stop there because there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, you're talking about you built up a portfolio of silver companies, right? Silver assets, I should say. You're talking about giving shareholders optionality to rise in a rising silver environment, right? Yep. And you've also said we've got enough money to drill them all. Okay, so I need to understand what does giving optionality in a rising silver market mean? Yep. And the fact that you've got just over $11 million bucks in cash, you got some warrants which may come through which deliver the same again or thereabouts. You're going to have to focus at some point. You're going to have to get focused. You can't be spending a little bit, spreading your money thin, spreading your time thin. So your 2 projects that you're going to focus on, you're going to be drilling yourselves.
Correct.
Have you any intention on drilling on any of the others, or what does this optionality actually mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, maybe I'll make it very clear. Our focus is on Guigui, which is our flagship asset. And then our focus on the other 3 assets that are also very strong assets, is to get them drill ready. And whether we drill them ourselves or not, the market will determine. But what I'm doing, as well as getting the 3 projects drill ready, is I'm approaching a lot of the mid-tier silver producers, a lot of the bigger companies. So there is the possibility of finding a JV or even a strategic partner. One thing that I have to remember is that I was looking for assets and silver assets. There's like so few of them in the world. So I think that the opportunity to have these assets is very valuable. And I agree with you 100% that we're going to be very focused into Guigui, and then at the same time that with the other assets we'll get them to a drill ready stage. The drill campaign at Guigui is going to start very, very soon. We're just waiting for a permit, and we're already, like, from the time we applied to now, we're already in the time where we should get it within weeks. So as soon as that first drill campaign gets started, that's going to that's going to become obviously the main focus.
Okay, so again, let's just slow it down for everyone. So with Guigui, you're going to spend how much money and drill how many meters, like in the next few months?
An initial 10,000 meters. That's starting in the next couple of weeks. I think that's going to cost us around 4.5 million Canadian dollars. So we're going to go through this first drill campaign at Guigui, plus get all our other assets drill ready, and still preserve more than half of our cash.
Right. Okay. So let's stick with Guigui for now. So you're gonna drill this 10,000 odd meters, spend $4.5 million on this,
yes.
And then you stop, take a breath, take a look what you've got, and what do you expect you will have?
Exactly. Yeah. So look, there's very different degrees of success. When you look at the geological model for Guigui, there's a very clear goal and target that we're looking for. In these systems, they have a chimney system, and then there's a skarn system. In the case of Guigui, it's a Santo Valle district, which is actually the largest CRD system in Mexico. It has produced something like 500 million ounces of silver, where the grade of the silver was 310 grams per ton silver, with 15% lead zinc combined. Now, in this system, all that historic production that I described to you has come only from the chimney system. The skarn has never been found. So, a resounding measure of success is if Peters and his team are able to convincingly intersect that skarn, the intrusive rock that goes along with it, because you can quite confidently make a parallel with other CRDs that are, in a belt, almost lined up, starting from central Mexico all the way to the Taylor deposit in Arizona, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that South 32 just bought last year for $1 billion plus. So, we're looking for a big target, and that would be obviously a big measure of success. And then other more moderate measures of success, finding more of these high-grade chimneys and having a strong indication. So that's, I think, how we'll. Obviously, if we hit the mother lode in the first drill campaign, we'll be looking at spending another $5-10 million easily in drilling for the follow through. We're looking for a big target, so I think that this first program for Guigui is going to dictate the future of the company.
Right. It does, and I want to come back to a phrase you used earlier, which is the market will decide. But just again, sticking with Guigui, if you don't hit this mother lode, how do you decide? Because it's your decision making, not the market. Yes. How much more money you spend chasing this mother lode?
Yeah, I think we will certainly keep trying, and again, we're well funded to do that. Just to give you a sense, when I discussed originally with Mag Silver, the basis of the deal was to raise 5 million Canadian, because they thought 5 million is about how much it would take you to have a good pass at the asset. They also didn't want us to just raise 2, and then you put 2, and then you don't find it, and then you don't have an opportunity to go back and have a follow through program. So we certainly have we're well funded to have more than one pass at this. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the work that Mag Silver did was to narrow down the target area. They started, the land package was much bigger than we have. We still have like 4,000 hectares. That land package was a lot bigger. And I think the part of the work that we have done over the last 6 months is reinterpreting the geophysics, this new technologies that have never been applied to this. So, I mean, we have a strong sense of confidence, but, it's a very good question. And actually, you're the first person who's, I think, asked us this question. So, but, absolutely, I think again, like we'll have to look at what the results come, and then if the program is not successful, then we have to determine how we keep going. But, keep in mind, we are in an area that's, we're surrounded by 2 producing mines. One of them is, it's more like a toll milling kind of situation, but the other one is owned by Grupo Mexico. And again, like I mentioned to you, there's various degrees of success. We might not find, 50 million ounces of, 500 million ounces of silver, but, anything you find, that could still be quite significant. Everything that's in that district is very high grade. And that's where I also wanted to talk about different degrees of success. But the one thing that I did make clear to all our investors, and I think that's also good for all your listeners to know, is everybody who came into this, like they're not the type of investors looking for, a small, low grade silver deposit. Like we're looking for a big target.
Everyone's looking for a big target, but it's a question of how you go about doing it and how you apply your resources, your time, your money doing it. Okay, so I guess we'll find out more after this drill campaign. So let's park up, Gigi. Let's talk about what you said there. Again, the market will decide what you do with the other 3 assets, right? Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess in a sense, yes. Like the market will dictate. I mean, when silver started rising, we started looking at a possibility of, especially when it started hitting $30, we started looking at a possibility of what happens if the price goes to 50 or 60. It's way beyond my skill set to even venture a guess as to whether that could happen or not. But I do think, when we had a discussion in the board, given the fact that we were able to get these assets on an option basis, we didn't have to pay cash, no shares. The cost of maintaining these properties for the next couple of years is actually pretty nominal, and the fact that we have a very strong technical team. So I think just in the terms of the business sense, given that we have a very strong team, I am very interested in talking to other companies and seeing if for instance we could have an alliance with another company or a JV where we do the exploration, but they put the money, and then that still could add a tremendous amount of value to the company.
Okay, and it's going to be important for you guys, I suspect, who you do those partnerships with, because you mentioned earlier, so you're looking for some of the bigger players there. You're not going to farm out to some other junior with cash flow problems. So I know you're looking at the right things. As a market guy, you're looking at the right things.
To that, like one comment that I'll make here is, the 2, especially the other 2 projects that we have in Mexico, they're literally right in the middle of major silver producing districts. So, in the La Reina, which is one of the new assets that we just got, it's 14 kilometers away from Sierra Metals that have a very high grade silver mine, and then Batopilas is very close to maybe 4 or 5. Coeur Mining, Sierra Metals is there as well, Newmont. So it's they're right in the middle of major silver districts. So this absolutely has value to those companies. That you have to also keep in mind. All the silver producers have not been able to expand their pipeline. They've really been in survival mode, and only now are they for the first time emerging. So that in that context is that we decided to follow this strategy.
It's interesting, actually, because you're right. We've spoken to a few of the names you just mentioned there. I mean, they have been in survival mode, but now they're in kind of trying to generate cash and play catch-up mode. Do you think that this environment, because you're going to have an opinion about where silver's going to go. You can't say it's above your pay grade. It's not. Are those guys being able to raise cash to be able to make acquisitions, or are you going to structure deals where it's just as long as they put money in the ground, you're happy?
I would invite anybody to go and look at the PEA of companies like Mag Silver. Look at what that even that company makes like something like 20% IRR at $8 silver, something like that, something crazy like that. I mean, when you're talking about a high environment of silver, a lot of these companies make a lot of money. Even some of the gold, a lot of the gold companies that are in Mexico, they have 20-30% of the gold is actual silver, because in Mexico is very typical. A lot of the gold comes with silver, and you're starting looking into go and look at if you have an opinion on silver, go and look at what happens to those deposits when silver goes to 30 or above. And then, in terms of my opinion from silver, being based in Asia, sort of at a more intuitive level, I had a very interesting conversation with an Indian smelter last weekend, and they bring silver bullion. They were telling me India last year, 2019, purchased the equivalent of world production of silver in either bullion and doré bars. And because gold has come up so much, for a lot of people, when gold gets real expensive, they go to what they call the poor man's version of gold, and they start buying silver jewelry and silver bullion for savings. Now, the SLV is buying, in the equivalent of 1 day world production every day for the past few months. Indians are buying the equivalent of world production every year. And then, 70% of the silver that's used for industrial purposes, a lot of it is coming for China for electronics. Coins is in the rise, bullion is in the rise. I mean, it is a very interesting macro environment for silver. And I think, just discussing with our board, we did feel that it was important to set the company up for what could potentially, be a very significant market. And, if that market does not manifest, at the end of the day, the projects that we have, in addition to our original assets, we did not have to pay any cash, no shares. And, that's what I meant with the optionality.
Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing what discussions you are having with who on some of these projects. I do understand the optionality thing, but I'm more excited the fact that you're getting focused on projects that you're in control of, and you're going to start drilling, because I think that's what people are looking for. All the structuring that you've done, all of the putting together this portfolio, it's all really good. Good team, everything I like. You got the cash. Now it's what are you going to do with the drill bit time? So, Jorge, stay in touch. Let us know how you get on with your drilling, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to reach your audience. And I'll say, if anybody wants to learn more about the details of our drill campaign and the details of our assets, please do go to our website, because we've posted there a technical presentation for each of our assets, as well as some videos with Peter McGaw explaining the assets in more detail.